Hi there, Bree here, and this is part two, a video of a tour of the Hearth. And if you watched the first video, we went over just the layout of the space and how we set up the community. And in this video, I'm going to talk about a lot more of the high-level strategy and why we designed this community the way that we did. So let's dive in. Before we go through the platform in a little bit more detail, wanted to zoom out and give a peek of our community map. So for every community that I partner with, we consider in a dream world scenario, how would this community operate? What are the interactions and experiences that would happen? And we consider them over this matrix. So what are the events, conversation, and content housed in this community? And how are they helping people with three main objectives? And those three objectives can change. But for this community, we had get started, get help, and get inspired. In addition to that, we are considering the color coding here is contrasting the three different types of interactions that you can have in a community. This concept was adopted from Tatiana Figueredo's Build a Community Business. And we want to consider both big group interactions that include everyone, small group interactions, which are with a smaller subset of the community. And in blue here, we have one-on-one interactions. And this all goes back to if your community is serious about helping people transition from simply congregating for a similar affinity or topic or person and becoming a place where they stay because they are connected to other people, then considering how you're going to prompt those one-on-one interactions is really important. And it tends to be one of the hardest things to add to this map because it's really hard to control how people meeting one-on-one. But one of the things I love about Heartbeat is that they have that matchup feature baked into the platform. So it does make a significant part of that one-on-one connection easier right off the bat. So not all of this is executed in the community. Some of this was executed and then we changed it. So this was just a first iteration of what we considered for the community back when we first began. Something that I loved about working with this team is that they have a really iterative approach to community. Community is made up of people who are changing every single day. So if your community is not changing and evolving with them, it will become irrelevant very quickly. And it's one of the things that we really tried to reiterate in the mindset of our community builders was just launch it. just launch it. You can always tinker with it and improve it over time. But the most important thing is just getting it out there. Which leads me to one of our biggest lessons learned. So when we first launched the community, when I first came onto the team, so I found out about Heartbeat actually through a mastermind series that they were hosting for community builders. So if I go up for here actually to past events, you'll see Heartbeat Mastermind, leveling up as a community builder. So this was an event that was a distinct type of event that was being hosted here before Heartbeat had a ton of customers. And by the time that I came on to help architect this space, there were a ton of people joining to launch their communities in Heartbeat. And we just sort of naturally decided to continue to do masterminds. We broke it into two different categories. We had new community masterminds, so people who were just getting ready to launch their community. And then we had existing community masterminds to keep that peer-to-peer. We wanted the masterminds to be peer-to-peer learning, not like expert to beginner learning, because otherwise masterminds can start to weigh on the experts a lot. And by expert, I mean somebody who maybe is still a peer, is still using Heartbeat, but has had their community around for a while and has some wisdom to share. So we tried to segment the masterminds. It didn't go well, and attendance was dropping. And what we eventually finally did was really took a look at the onboarding data that we were getting when people joined the community. And that told us that 80% of our community members were launching a new community. So that told us that they were in both unconscious incompetence and conscious incompetence from the 4 stages of unconscious incompetence. What that means is they don't know what they don't know, and or they are just figuring out just how much they don't know. So what we realized is that masterminds are really helpful once you've launched your community and you're ready. You maybe have some new obstacles popping up. You want to like break things open with other people, get their advice, hear how they've done it in the past. But when there's not a ton of people who have like, quote, done it in the past, it's really difficult to foster successful masterminds. So instead, we pivoted to a tutorial strategy. So we focused on honing the skills and expertise from community experts who were in our orbit and facilitating tutorials with them for the community. Which leads me to the next part of the design, which was probably one of the most labor-intensive elements of the community design, but I think, adds the most. It's one element that adds a ton of value to this community space, which is the relationship with the community guides. So for us, we have a whole like orbit of these people who are considered experts in the space. So they're community builders, community architects. They do this as their work. And a lot of them are specifically consultants who either might have a course, might have contract work, might do retainers. And so they have a lot of expertise and skills to share in this community building space. So during the length of my time here, I connected individually with each community guide and got to know them and their deliverables, but also who their ideal client was a lot more specifically. And the reason for that is I wanted to make sure there was true alignment between who they were targeting as their ideal customer and who we are targeting as our community builders, which is not always the case. And so that was a really awesome process for me to get to connect with these people, but then also figuring out how we can create a win-win scenario where they are sharing wisdom and knowledge in the Hearth, elevating our community, helping build more thriving communities that launch faster. And how is the Heartbeat community supporting them? So how can we send them customers who would be a good fit for their services? So that took a lot of one-on-one conversations to try to suss out the best combinations and the best fit. But we eventually launched, we now do like 2 to 3 events, tutorials a month. And these events have proven to be really valuable for the community to get the skills and expertise they need just to launch and grow their communities. I mentioned the onboarding survey in that process, and one note I wanted to add, because we did get some pushback on it. This is a free customer community, which is customer communities are often free, but when you do a free customer community, I always like to bake in some friction, some good old-fashioned friction. And here's what good friction is not. It's not bad friction, which is like, I'm clicking on this link and the link is not working. That's bad friction. Good friction is asking someone to be thoughtful about why they are joining your community. It means asking them what they are going to give into this space, and it requires energy. It requires energy up front, where you set the pace that if they are going to be in this community, it's going to take effort on their part. And the more effort that they give, the more they will get. So this community is free, which is the opposite of creating friction. But in our onboarding survey, we have a very in-depth survey that gets a ton of information from them about where they're at in their process, who they are, what obstacles they're overcoming, because not only did we want to get that information, but we didn't mind that survey being long because we wanted to create friction. We only wanted people to join this community who, if they can't fill out a 3-page survey in order to get access to all of this value, then they're probably not a good fit for this community. And we were okay creating that friction. We got some pushback on this, that it was too long, that it was too much in the onboarding process to join the community. And this is one of those scenarios where we were okay with creating that friction for people because it was ultimately going to lead to a better community overall. So finally, one other element just to touch on is our world building. So one of the things I really enjoyed the most in working with Mortiza was our world building sessions. So we took a lot of time because Heartbeat is so, it's kind of wistful, and we wanted the names of our events and the names of our spaces to reflect that. And so we came up with things like what's in the sauce events, which shows us that it's not about just getting lucky, but the thoughtful ingredients and intentional design behind your community. The Abracadabra live support sessions. So we went through a whole mind mapping exercise to kind of nail down some of the vernacular for our events, our threads, our courses. And that was a lot of fun. The one thing that I will say in our lessons learned from this was that the world building and kind of custom like language and vernacular was, I think, really beneficial for certain areas of the community. Overall, what was difficult about the platform was that you don't get a ton of real estate for the titles of things. So even over here in Threads, you've really limited space for the names. So some of our names, like How I Built This, fit here just fine. But there were some, like for events after we host an event and we house it in docs. For example, here, these are our What's in the Sauce events, but that title doesn't fit well in this space. So we did go back to kind of the like original name that just was a little bit more boring. But for the sake of helping people find events and find the materials that they needed, we found it was necessary to kind of go back to those original names. So just a note for the future. I love a good world building session, and I think it makes your community feel magical and thoughtful and alive. But sometimes you have to reconcile that with like the actual real estate that you're given in the platform. So overall, my assessment of who this community is for, I definitely recommend this community platform for communities that are based in events. The event like setup and features are really robust in this community platform. And I especially recommend this platform for maker communities. So I would categorize that as someone who has an audience, perhaps a podcast, a newsletter, people who have coached individually, perhaps, and are trying to connect those individuals who they've coached into one larger group. Whoever that audience is, they are trying to turn that audience into a community and possibly monetize it. So Heartbeat already has payment options directly in Heartbeat. So there's a lot of features that will be super helpful for you as a community builder. And especially if you're like a founder or a solopreneur, this is an excellent space for you. All right, I hope you enjoyed this tour and this little behind the scenes look at how we created the Hearth. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks.